All right. We'll call the July meeting of the Port Edwards Board of Education to order. Roll call.
Carrie Hildebrandt, I am here. Kathy McGrath.
Here.
John Dobbin.
Here.
And Leo is gone today.
Okay. First item is consider approval of agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. President's report. Everyone is here except for Leo. Excused absence. So our next board meeting is August 15th. Is that reflective of the change?
Yep.
Yeah, August 15th. And then September meeting would be September 12th.
Yep.
So next item is administrative reports. Kyle.
So we've got, we're in the middle right now of our audit, and I want to first off thank Lisa, because she has spent considerable time preparing for the audit, and it's not the most stress-free process. So we've got 3 auditors in the office today, continuously asking Lisa for documentation, clarification, asking lots of questions, and so it's something where it's the kind of day where Lisa can work for 5 minutes on one thing, and then is the next 30 minutes with the auditor going over X, Y, and Z items. But so far so good on the audit, and you know, that's something we've been fortunate over the last several years. We've had really good audit reports. With that in mind, one of the items that we look at is where we're at the end of the year now with that audit report. We had budgeted, projected a budget deficit this past year of $105,336. Since that time, we have realized less expenses, not by a lot. There are a few areas where we're able to keep expenses down, but as a result, we are finishing the year with approximately about $100,000 deficit that'll come out of the fund balance. So it's a little better than 105. For this next year, we're working on our final budget, or we're working on our budget numbers. We do anticipate additional revenue in several areas, approximately 86,000 in increased revenue limit. I looked at that number today, and it's frustrating to look at that number because they have our 2000 fiscal year 18 enrollment sitting at 391, I thought it was, and we always had more than 391 students in the building, but the way the open enrollments are calculated and 6603s are calculated and a bunch of other things, you know, we finished the year right about 430 students, yet that number sitting in the revenue limit's 391. So a little frustrating there, but we should see about $86,000 more this year in revenue limit. We should see increased per pupil aid of about $100,000, increased sparsity aid of $39,000. There's obviously some added expenditures as we've added some staff this year, but we do anticipate some reduced costs and post-employment benefits. So, you know, we're still working on those numbers. We're by no means final there yet, and as we get into the fall and closer to some of our enrollment numbers, we'll be able to just put those final pieces together. But just gives you a little bit of a picture of our end of the year finances and where we're heading moving into this year. So next year's budget a projected deficit again.
Yeah, but it would reflect, the more students would reflect that in next year's budget.
Hopefully, well, and I can say that as the year progressed this past year, some of our open enrollments became home district students, and so, you know, that's, you know, the big piece there is if we've got some of those students who've become residents, that's going to help out on that number quite a bit. because then they'll be calculated in that revenue limit differently. So, but, yeah, and it's not a bad thing to have more students. What becomes a bad thing as we have more students is when you've got to, and we've talked about this before, when you have to, 36 graders is manageable, 31 is probably doable, 32 you could get away with. Once you start getting 33, 34, 35, and then you're splitting a section again, and really that 32 and 33 isn't probably a great number. We could manage it if we had to, and so that's where some of the pieces on adding staff in the past have come in. But I think it's hard to say because not all the open enrollments have enrolled yet, and we have had a few open enrollment exception applications already after July 1, so we've had some extra open enrollments that didn't come in on the first wave. So those things have been positives. I even think in one case, I believe we had the exceptions, or we had the enrollments even where there might have been a sibling who had been denied in a class that was closed. So, which is, that's good in that sense, I guess. So we still got students regardless. But I don't know if I answered your question, John.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other piece I wanted to talk about were some of our summer projects going on, and we've got a lot going on. Right now, we've got a lot on the books waiting to happen. So just kind of a summary of where we're at. In terms of the middle school, high school energy efficiency, we have 4 unit ventilators, or sometimes just called univents. Those are the classroom ventilator units that need to be installed. This has been delayed a bit due to these get built, and so we're a bit delayed, and it may be September before those 4 units arrive. I did talk to Complete Control, and they will do evening, weekend install if need be. We'd wanted to get those done by the end of August, and it may be September, and that's just a delay in getting those on site. I did talk to them, like I said, I talked to them about working after hours. They're also working to get our variable drive and control system set up for the large gym air handling. That is slated for next week. That will allow our big gym air handling to ramp up and down based on occupancy, which is a lot more efficient. And hopefully it's, as we have more occupancy in the gym for that September volleyball game where it's 90 degrees outside, hopefully those systems ramp up and can keep up a lot better with that. Other projects at the middle school, high school, maybe not related to energy efficiency, the window wrapping on the back side of the building that was never done when those windows were installed is complete. That is done. As well as the ladder extension from the second floor to the third floor roof was worked on today. There is some more work on that needs to be done, but that is worked on. Culps of Stratford should be starting the cupola somewhere right about the beginning of August. I spoke with them just recently. It should only take them about a week to do that job, so that should be done well in advance of students coming back. The planter box replacement, where the car hit the planter box, that's slated for late August before school starts. We also are working on some trees, and I'll talk about trees in a little bit. We've got a lot going on with trees. I'll just do that all at once. Elementary school energy efficiency, the main piece that needs to be complete is insulating and re-roofing projects. This work is slated to actually begin on Monday. We'll see it. It's always weather dependent, but it's slated to begin on Monday. Includes re-roofing over the library, the kindergarten, music room, art room, first grade and fourth grade sections, third and fourth grade sections. Should take about 3 weeks to complete once they get moving on that. I apologize for my own phone going off. No, I thought that was mine.
Sorry.
I'm not going to apologize.
Sorry about that.
You and I must have the same ringer.
Yeah,
I turned it down. I did turn it
Sections over the second grade, the offices and gymnasium have been completed over the past couple of years as part of the energy efficiency, but we're looking forward. That will bring, we still have a few roof sections that at some point we'll have to have some discussion, but we should be set for at least a little while now. The next areas will be the areas probably over the music and tech ed at the high school. Those will be the next areas at some point down the road that we'll have to have some discussion on. But we've got the majority of the worst out of the way now for hopefully 20 plus years. Safety and security grant projects. So one of those is fencing the playground areas here with some more secure fencing. The fencing won't go in front of the building. The fencing will though come to near this side entrance by the kindergarten, and then fencing will extend from what would be the south end of the building toward the baseball field. There'll be gates, like vehicle or equipment access gates, and then there will also be what you would call like an emergency exit gate. So if you're in the playground area and need to exit that area, there'll be a gate that's basically like an exit door. It's going to have a push handle from the inside of the fenced-in area that would allow people to get out of the area. Because the idea is with fencing and safety and security, the fencing will be locked during the day. We'll have some discussion about how to open that up so that people have playground access in the evenings in the summer, because that's one of those community pieces. We're covered on that under state law that those areas can be open during after-school hours to people, and that's we do have some immunities there. So we want to continue to give those access when we can. We've also we're working on switch gears here. Classroom doors in the kindergarten area. That was part of that got put into that grant. That should be done mid-August. Bollards, which are basically things to keep people from driving into buildings. We will use stone bollards. They're a little more aesthetically pleasing out in the front of the building here. Sometime in August, we will procure those and get those on site. We do have some in-concrete bollards that'll be placed in a few areas to prevent incursion into the building by a vehicle. Camera upgrades, Mr. Lau is working on, and then CISA 10 is working on the timeline. We're going through CISA 10 since they helped us with the grant, and we can utilize the power of cooperative purchasing for the security film that will go on our doorways. So we're working on that timeline. The trees, the last item I wanted to cover. We have several trees this year that we slated for removal. There are 2 large white pine at the high school, middle school complex. One is completely dead and the other is infested with the woodpecker holes, and it is killing off that tree. One is on the west side of the track, the other is on the east side of the track. Both those trees will be coming down. Those are big projects because those are great big pines. We have to have those taken down in sections. There's nowhere just to drop those trees. So we're going to be working on that within the next week or two. Those will come down. Out here at the elementary, as you notice, we removed several trees from the front of the building. The majority of those were spruce. There was a birch in that. The birch was dead at the top, and birch that die at the top are birch that are going to die. Some of the spruce were on their way to dying and dying. Others that we took out were simply, they were becoming an intrusion hazard for the building. There's some roots that are coming off of some of the ones on the south end that foot in diameter to probably bigger, 18 inches in diameter, roots coming right up to the building. And so we started to have some foundational worries and structural worries there. That is a problem. And those trees were, I don't want to say beyond the point of also trimming and making look good anymore. They were well beyond that. I have had some discussion with Mr. Zurflu from the village about working with the village to do some tree planting and at least getting some advice from our village forester, Mr. Bloom, on what types of boulevard trees, because really what should be planted out in the front are boulevard trees that grow down and up, not out. The ones that are growing out, roots out in the systems, they're going to play havoc on the sidewalks and havoc on the building. And so, and again, talking with Mr. Zurflu, he sounded willing to, have the village help us out where they could on that, and partner where they could to do some replanting of trees. And obviously, we can have some discussion on replanting some of our own along the way in different places, maybe around the school and the playground, that wouldn't be a building hazard or a sidewalk hazard or anything of that nature. So, with that, any questions on end of the year budget or building projects? There's painting going on. There's all kinds of other things that are happening. We're going to do some, still replacing some lights along the way that need to be replaced, and a lot of other things. So we've got a lot in the hopper right now. So,
Questions? All right. Thank you. Next item is questions and comments from people in attendance. Has anyone signed the sheet?
No,
No.
I asked for.
Okay. No questions and comments, all right. So I'll move on to number 5, consent agenda. Consider approval of minutes of the past meeting, June 13th.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, consider approval of financial reports. Do we have any gifts this month?
I have 3 budget revisions to report. The first one is a grant from the Alliant Energy for the Village Monarch Park from Tim Martin. That was for $2,750. Another grant from Alliant Energy from the volunteer grant through Terry Kraus for $200. And then we had a donation from Eat Smart Eatery, I think it was called. It was a donation given in the memory of Kay Levy. And I believe that was used for special education.
Yeah.
So as that was for,
Yep. All right, with that, we'll seek a approval of financial report.
so moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. We don't have any unfinished business tonight, so go move on to new business. Number 7, consider approval of 2018-19 assistant football coach Eric Callahan.
For your approval, Mr. Callahan has been with the district as an employee for the past 5 years, 5.5 years, and he's quite a bit of experience in the weightlifting area. He's got some experience along the way with organized sports and some other things, so we ask your approval.
For a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second.
We're busy.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Number 8, consider approval of the declaration and parent notice of district's student academic standards.
I sent you out a slightly updated version of that today because some of my hyperlinks weren't working in the original document, so I wanted to make sure we had the right hyperlinks. Each year we have to, the school board has to actively approve this. We essentially, in almost all areas, are following either the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards, or in the case of math and ELA, the English Language Arts, when we moved over to the Common Core Standards, when that was the direction the state was headed, we have simply stayed with those at that point. This is simply a declaration of our standards, not our curriculum per se, but it is the standards our curriculum is based off of. A couple of notes. With the social studies items, the state has come out with some new standards in that area. We are still, at the moment, basing our curriculum off of what would have been the previous set of standards, because they literally just came out with the new set of standards. So our teachers haven't even gotten a hold of them to look at them in any length yet. So that will be something we will be working on this year. Along with science, that is another area that 2 years ago we had begun to look at that based on some movement in staff and some staff items. We had held off on making some changes, but is something we're going to be looking at moving through this year, is getting our science standards up to date. Part of that is one of our in-service items this year is really going to be doing a full curriculum. I'll call it a curriculum move is what we're going to start working on, moving our curriculum off of a couple of systems onto maybe a more user-friendly format for us. And in doing that, looking at standards at the same time that the curriculum is based on. We've got 3 of our in-services are fully slated for curriculum and standards work. So it's going to be a lot of work, and probably take us more than this year to get it completely moved. But so we basically, again, use standards adopted by the state of Wisconsin at some point in time. So that's what this is a declaration of. Once you approve it, we will update it on our website.
I move for approval.
I will second that.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Number 9, consider approval of 2018-19 teaching contract.
I will tell you, one of the most enjoyable days I've ever had interviewing people was last Tuesday. We interviewed, surprisingly, we had 5 interviews for at-risk. We had some good candidates. Ms. McMillan rose to the top of that list very quickly. And brings in 26 years of at-risk experience. In fact, being lead teacher in the Juneau County Charter School and Adolescent Needs Programs, which were run through CISA 5 for the last 14 years. So a lot of really good experience coming with that. Jamie Tuttle, English teacher, brings 6 years of experience, and both great interviews. So recommend those contracts. Now, on Jamie Tuttle, I do want to mention, we posted that as a .67 English position. However, one of the areas we've run into was getting it's 5th grade health and 5th grade physical education. With 40 students, Tina McLaughlin could not teach both. And so one of the items in the schedule that we had to resolve was how to get that done, because it's an every other day, and she just couldn't do both because it's split. You're splitting those kids. So Mr. Crandall will be taking the 5th grade physical education. However, in order to do that and not give him an overload, we assign duties to Jamie Tuttle to teach the choices class. Willing to do that and able to do that, and Mr. Crandall had been teaching that, and we're basically pulling that from him. There's also a 5th grade study skills piece that's built into things with what she'll be doing, also with what Marissa will be doing. And part of that came off of not, I don't want to say it, the way the 5th grade with the 40 students is, there's every other day. It doesn't work to have, it would be a big section based on how the music is, and so she'll be taking some of those duties as well. So we were able to give her more contract time with the choices and what, so.
So she went from the
67
.67 to .92.
Yep. And I did mention to her that, there are no guarantees, so there was a question of her, but I had mentioned there are no guarantees that that'll be assigned that way in the future, but that, at least for this year, that's the solution. So, and avoid some overload time for us, so.
Yep.
Seek a motion to approve both of those.
So moved.
Second it.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. And we welcome them to the district.
Yes, thank you.
Number 10, consider approval of 2018-19 property liability crime, inland marine, automobile, linebacker, umbrella, and workers' compensation insurance plans, and cyber solutions insurance plans.
A lot there. The good news is, I don't often get to say this about insurance, and we didn't even have to call Progressive or talk to Geico. We're saving $11,000 this year on our insurance plans. It's an $11,000 savings this year, and the majority of that savings, really all of that savings, is coming from a better rating for our workers' compensation. There's a $12,000 decrease on our workers' compensation insurance this year, which is big. Very good. Some of the insurance plans are staying the same, only a couple of them in reality. Most of the others are just going up a few dollars, more inflationary than anything. So we recommend your approval of our insurance plans. And like I say, we didn't have to call Geico or Progressive to save $11,000.
I move for approval of the insurance plans.
I will second that.
All right, good. Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Do we have the new van yet?
A new van? No, not yet. We've got that'll be a discussion we're gonna have, is how we wanna go about that, so.
All right. The motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Next item is consider appointment of new board member.
So this will be the time where we'll go through the process for the appointment that the board will consider. So you had chosen at the last meeting, just as kind of a remind you and go through. You've got some interview questions for your candidates. You're going to do that in a panel format. We have to draw names for who gets to go first, so. One says Ben, one says Bart.
Both short
Who's
meetings.
We'll do our selection. Take that hand.
Donna,
So, be Bart.
Bart. and then we'll trade off. Ben will go first on the next question.
Yep,
Right?
yep. And then, so there's a 5-minute limit per question. You don't have to use all 5 minutes, but there is a 5-minute limit per question. And Mr. Dobbin, you'll be doing the questioning, so.
Yes,
Yes,
that's what we decided last time. And that's, yeah. Okay. So Bart, you get to go first. First question is, please explain why you are interested in serving on the Port Edwards Board of Education.
Small town education has been my life. Graduated from Hilbert High School, then went to UW-Madison, so the small town left me. But then my first teaching job 34 years ago was in the Watoma School District, teaching high school English. Stayed there for a dozen years, and then moved on to Tri-County School District, teaching high school English up to my 31st year. And now the last 3 years, I've been the alternative education coordinator. And growing up in that environment, teaching in that environment, and seeing the effective communication and coordination of all parts of the district, the community, the school board, staff, administration, support staff, students, all need to network together to provide the best possible learning environment. And there's pros and cons to small school systems and large school systems. I'm a product of a small school. My children are products of the small school system, and I truly believe they're better for it. The family atmosphere, the personal connections are extremely important. And it's a civic duty, I believe. My dad always drilled that into me. Civic duty, civic duty. You need to get involved. He still keeps hammering that.
Thank you. Ben, please explain why you are interested in serving on the Port Edwards Board of Education.
A future graduate of John Edwards High School. Lived here my whole life. My family's been here. My parents, we chose to bring our kids here to Port Edwards Elementary School and to continue our family building in the small community of Port Edwards. Enjoyed it when I was growing up, going to school here. The small schools bring trying times to budgets, to keeping core activities going, sports, academics, things that are outside of the school, which keeps kids here. Something very important to me growing up and very important to my kids now and a lot of residents and students here is keeping the activities and the things we have going in Port Edwards, the small schools, the small size classrooms, and the one-on-one activities we have with kids and the teachers can give our students. The small school is very important to me and to keeping it going. A couple other reasons. I think there's some things outside of working together. Obviously, I work with the village. I've been there almost 16 years. I think there's some things that the village and the school can do, both work together on some activities to try to help cut costs and budgets. We're both underneath the same circumstances, with the budget cuts, the levies, and the tax increases. We're kind of handicapped what we can do in the future, and I think it's going to be very important moving forward in the next few years to work together to keep essentially the identity of Port Edwards in the school. I mean, you take away the school out of Port Edwards, it turns into we don't know what, and that's very important to me and to I think a lot of residents that I see on a day-to-day basis is keeping what we have established and keep it moving forward. So that's my main concern, is to keep what we have going now. We've worked really hard. The village, the school board we have now and the previous school board we have now to keep what we have going. There's been some hardships over the years, but I think they've done a good job, and I just want to be part of that to make sure we can keep that going for hopefully my grandkids and my kids to keep education in Port Edwards.
So, you get to go first on the next question. Share with us the life experiences, assets, and opportunities you have or have had that will enhance your ability to serve on the Port Edwards School Board.
Well, I've been part of a lot of boards. Some youth sports, and I've also been on some statewide stuff with the wastewater and the water department, which I deal on a daily basis. On the Southwest Wastewater Board, which deals with phosphorus limits and budget cuts and dealing with the DNR and other activities. So I deal with the rules and the regulations and how the board, the bylaws and the different things that need to follow. I'm familiar with that. And every board that I've been involved in, I look at the big picture. I've started on some boards then in the local town that were probably struggling, and I worked hard to bring them back up to a level that I thought they needed to be. That's not really a circumstance with this. We're at a good level, we need to maintain that, but I have been involved, on the bottom of boards and on the top of that to keep what we're essentially trying to gain after on those activities and boards. I've dealt with the village board. We've had some administration change over the last 2 or 3 years, and during those times I was involved in the budgets, as in the wastewater and the public works and the tax levy and different things. I was brought into that, so I do have some experience on budgets and that sake. I have the willingness and heart to do the time. I know it takes time to devote to make sure that you think through everything when you're making processing, voting. You're working for the community and everybody together to make the choices, the rights and the wrongs, and not every choice is going to be the right choice, but you have to look at the big picture and how it's going to affect everybody and go from there. So I have there. Thank you.
Thank you. You want me to repeat the question?
Sure, just one.
Okay. Share with us the life experiences, assets, and opportunities you have or have had that will enhance your ability to serve on the Port Edwards School Board.
Starting in high school, being a Badger Boy State delegate, where you get to learn the ins and outs of how government functions, really opened my eyes. And from the school perspective, I've filled just about every role extracurricular: head boys basketball, head girls basketball, head varsity track, athletic director. very familiar with budgeting, especially with athletics, and also very familiar with WIAA and rules and regulations and athletic codes. And while I was athletic director, overseeing about a $250,000 building project with our football field and track facility, and the ins and outs, and the learn by experience. Yeah, it was, very good experience for me to go through. Really, you start to appreciate all levels that go into making that project complete. And luring me back, I guess, into coaching because we needed some middle school positions filled, and I was stepping away from coaching as I was spending more time with other people's children than my own. And all of a sudden, these middle school positions opened up, and we wanted some experience down there, creating a new track program at Tri-County. To put somebody inexperienced in that position probably would not have been beneficial. It would have turned the kids off probably to the sport. So I've jumped back into coaching, and it's always positive when you work with them. So from within the school perspective, I've also worked through the Y and volunteer coaching my son's flag football team a couple years, a basketball team. So community involvement, school involvement, and they are closely associated with one another.
All right, very good. Third question be to you, Art. First, the term of the current vacancy expires in April of 2019. First, does your schedule allow time to fully commit to this position? And secondly, if selected to complete the current vacancy, would you be willing to run for a full 3-year term in April of 2019? Why or why not?
The meeting times at 5:30 are perfect. For me, when middle school basketball rolls around, our practices are done by 5, so I would be able to get here at 5:30. If need be, I can get here sooner because I do have an assistant that can finish out the basketball, and the same thing with track as well. Practices at the middle school are done by 5. As far as the position opening up in April, I wouldn't be here tonight if I did not intend to run then in April. I mean, you can't say for sure because you never know what's going to happen between now and April, but that is my full intention, yes, to run in April.
All right, thank you. You want me to repeat the question, Ben?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a commitment that that I want to take involvement in and put it on top of my commitment. I have some other levels of commitment that some of you guys know in sports, but this would be on top of it. I think it's very important moving forward where I'm at in my life to devote to the school and the education and to keep things going. As my kids move forward, I want to make sure that Port Edward School stays where it's at, and I'm going to stay here as long as my job lets me in the village of Port Edwards. I'm going to be a resident, and I want to be part of the school and what goes on in the future moving forward. So I'm definitely interested in moving forward in the next term and hopefully carry that on as long as it lets me. Like I said, I just want to keep things we have going right now moving forward, and that's the reason that I'm here tonight and looking to make a commitment for as long as I'm elected back on to that position and spots.
Very good. Number 4, to you, Ben. Do you have any questions for us about what is entailed in serving as a school board member in Port Edwards?
No, in the last year and a half, I've been taking interest in coming to the many meetings I can to see, the activities that goes on and what it takes. Helpful with having the meetings now on TV. So for the last year and a half, I've been keeping my nose on what's been going on and, trying to follow it so that if the chance ever come, the opportunity that I wasn't left behind, I kind of could step in and move things forward and stay on top of what's going on. So I guess, like I said, I don't have any questions for you guys at this point. But thank you.
Pretty familiar with how board meetings run. While at Watoma for 2 years, I served as union president, so when it came to negotiations, I was on the other side of the table, and that created some long evenings and some interesting discussion. And my dad had served on school board in Hilbert. My brothers served on the school board in Dodgeville. And family get-togethers usually evolve into a conversation about education. So watching my dad and like I said, being union president and very familiar with the board member. Now, Act 10 has kind of changed that whole negotiation thing. From a board perspective, it's streamlined it when it comes to negotiations as to what we used to do back in the day. But I'm very familiar with the board proceedings, and I know let's say, I don't want to flip a question back, but Kathy, how has your experience been from a staff member now to a board member?
Positive. I mean, I just felt that, I never dreamed that I'd ever be a board member, first of all, but when the opportunity arose and I was asked, I thought, if there's anything I can do to keep this wonderful school going, because it's been my life, so that was really the reason that I said yes to it, so.
All right, well, thank you for your answers, and now we will, is there an approval of a new board member?
John, if I may,
Oh,
just
yeah.
a moment, I wanted to consult with Bob Butler, because we have 3 members present and not 4. And just a note, I know that you usually refrain from making motions or seconds yourself in
Oh.
your chair.
Yeah.
You are able to certainly
Right.
do that if need be,
We
so,
need you.
just so that you are aware of that.
Right.
So, and the other piece is, I'm going to hand you some slips of paper because you had indicated that you will vote by paper ballot.
Right. And we will write our name on it, and
You have to indicate your name and how you vote on the motion. And it's not like an election where there's got to be a motion made for somebody, and then you vote. You can certainly vote on that motion, so that you know that. It's all the legalities of this.
And Kyle is very good at knowing what we need to be doing.
so I will call for nominations to fill the seat.
I nominate Bart McCarthy.
Okay, there's been a nomination.
Now we have to,
Needs to be a second.
Oh, there has to be a second.
Yep.
If there isn't a second, then the nomination does not succeed.
Correct.
Is there a second? Lack of okay, then no second, then that nomination does not succeed. So is there any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Ben Martinson.
I will second that. And now any discussion? Any more discussion on the nomination?
No.
I
Thank
just
you.
feel that we have 2 wonderful candidates,
Yes.
and I wish we had a spot for both of them.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that whoever doesn't get seated tonight will in the future, because I may not want to be here forever. I'm getting old, so don't give up, that's what I would say.
I mean,
Yeah.
we can, comment on that right now or afterwards, but yeah, it's really exciting to see 2 candidates that are very qualified to serve on this board, and it is, like Kathy said, unfortunate that one of the 2 people are not going to be on this board, but like Kathy, who's to say that one of us others will not be able to continue forward. So whoever does not receive this nomination tonight and appointment, definitely, encourage you to seek it again, or just, April election. I mean, there's, but it's great to see that we had 2 great candidates to be wanting to be on this board, so.
Fortunate we are in Port Edwards we could have had no one come forward, that was my concern, so.
Well, and the values you guys both shared are the exact values that everybody in the past here has shared, and that our entire community shares, and it's always the similar message, and it's really nice to see throughout our community and the school. So, very good.
Yeah, I echo their thoughts, and they're both exceptional candidates, so thank you for applying. Any other discussion? Okay, then I call for a vote, and we selected paper ballots, so we put our name and how you vote on the motion.
Yes. Want me to collect those, John, and tally those?
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah.
You need some time to tally.
Just like me to.
I
Colonel Byron.
Do you need a
Well,
calculator?
you have to record
I
this
know,
in the
I
minutes, so.
That's true.
So, well, and I do, by statute, I actually have to, because this has to be an open vote, this cannot be a closed vote. So John Donovan, on the nomination for Ben Martinson votes yes. Carrie Hildebrandt on the nomination for Ben Martinson votes yes. And Kathy McGrath on the nomination for Ben Martinson votes yes. So.
Okay, congratulations to Ben.
Hang in there, Bart.
Yeah, and so what we'll do is at the August meeting, prior to the August meeting, we can do this swearing in actually during Lisa can take care of that, and we can get him sworn in and whatever. I think there's a document in terms of residency that's got to get signed. So when that takes place, then we'll have him at the August meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item is opportunity for individual board member comment. Carrie.
I already talked more than my allotted time tonight, so I'll just reiterate that it was nice to see such great candidates come to apply and help serve on this board. And just to say that, I don't know, it's a year and a half or maybe it's 2 years, I don't recall, but I definitely have the same feelings that these two gentlemen did when I approached the board in the same manner, and then, of course, got reelected in the next election. And yes, it's been a very nice and good experience. So to anybody outside of even our district that is ever considering to be part of a school board or any community boards, obviously would fully recommend that. There's a lot of gratification that does come along with being a part of something of this nature. So, and again, thanks Bart for coming here, even though we didn't get there. But so,
Thank you. Kathy?
I just wanted to say the summer school program, and I don't know much about the middle school, high school, but the elementary school, that there were really some neat, innovative classes that I just think, teaching kids to fish and some of those things so they're not going to be on little handheld devices were excellent courses, and I've heard really positive comments from people in the community about some of those classes where they can really come in the summer and do something fun and learn a lot at the same time. I also wanted to mention the Kids from Wisconsin performance on Monday night where our very own Megan Shields was performing. It was excellent, and she's an excellent singer and dancer. It was really great. I also want to thank Chris Martinson and Tad for getting the Monarch school sign out in front of the school. If you haven't seen it, take notice of that. And then I wanted to remind everyone about the Port Fun Fest on August 11th in Port Edwards. It's Port Fun Fest and Monarch Festival, and it's been a great summer so far for the Monarchs, so things should be looking up for them.
A lot of wood ticks on it.
A lot of wood ticks. We won't talk about
Yeah.
them.
Well, I guess I don't really have much. Just looking forward to working with Ben and our new member, and happy summer. Yeah, what's left. So,
a lot of summer, yeah.
our next meetings, as we said, are August 15th and September 12th. So, with that, I'll call for adjournment.
So moved.
I will second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.